breaking it down, how the buy side spins, dollars around. Gareth steps up with that data finesse, selling it right, no room for a guess. The mics are hot, the beats hit hard, fans throw their hands high in the yard. Deals and impressions like a verbal sprint, breaking it down with an AdTech tint. AdTech Ad Talk, it's a live Q&A. Buy side, sell side, clearing the way. CEO spitting truth, no delay. Chalice and Gemera owning the day.
When buy side meets sell side, it's less dangerous. Here's Adam and Gareth now to entertain us.
Yeah! Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming. Welcome back to a special 4th of July edition of AdTech Talk, where today we're going to talk about the conquest of the Americas by the Brits and the subsequent rebellion.
The French. Shout out to the French for helping us out in the revolution. Marquis de Lafayette statue in the South Slope, and I love to tell my children about how the French helped us against the Redcoats. Nice statue on 9th Street.
So if you're tuning in and you thought you were going to get ad tech discussion today, I'm sorry that you're wrong. It's going to be a bunch of very mediocre history. Just joking. We're going to talk about ad tech.
Let's hope France is in the house.
I invited a few French people, I think. There's some ad tech in France.
First person to ask a question in French gets some chalice swag. French person. You have to be French.
Français. Why are we? I mean, I guess the French get their love. But thank you for joining, everyone. So today, we figured we'd do some talking about privacy because Europe's on the horn.
GDPR.
Yeah, I mean, well, GDPR. I also just went through the process of getting a GVL ID, which is funny. And totally wild. And I think we can talk about, actually, it's worth talking about TCF. I don't speak enough French to know what that means.
Is the cat in the tree?
Is the cat in the tree?
That's
shot.
it. There you go.
But yeah, man. So one. And this is actually very timely because Alan Chappell, I was just on his podcast with Erez, who I know you love, Adam. And we were talking about primarily IDs and privacy. And there's a nice controversial statement that I'm going to make a lot of people angry with right now, which is cookies are great. Like, I think cookies are great. I really do. And I'll tell you why. I think they're great because they're actually like relatively anonymous compared to all of the alternatives.
They're pretty private.
They're pretty private, man. And if we're really worried about privacy, they're pretty good. Like a little number that sits in a browser, and that's the extent that it exists. Like the only way that it's privacy non-compliant is if the company who is involved in setting it has data that is PII and can tie it to the cookie. And sure, that's where it gets dicey, but that's always going to be the case. If the company that has access to your browser, has access to your email, has PII about you, wants to do something with it or doesn't take care of it, like, yeah, that's a privacy risk.
Let me take the side of a European privacy advocate. I've argued with them all, and they're going to say that it's not the law's fault that when they went to cookies, that everybody went to federated IDs based on that's because our industry is so evil, and that if you blame European law for people switching to something less private, then you're making a mistake. It's just that the law needs to be more vigorously enforced. That's what they say.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big advocate for, like, we shouldn't legislate based on the concept that people aren't going to listen to the law. And like, because that's the thing, right? That's the thing in all legislation. You should never make the pragmatic argument, well, because the law is written this way, people are going to ignore it, so we should pass the law this way. It's like, no, when you pass a law, you pass a law under the auspice that it will be obeyed and it will be enforced. I just think that GDPR was so vague when it comes to any sort of user tracking that it basically meant that everyone was basically going to be in violation of GDPR in perpetuity. And that's why there's all that hubbub about TCF, because TCF, by the letter of GDPR, I'm sure it has violations. Like I'm sure that it does. You click one thing to give consent to 300 companies. Like our GVL ID, when we're going to publishers now, we're like, oh, just slap our GVL ID into your like giant consent framework, and now you're good. Like, and that's not how GDPR is written.
You can't get a massage anonymously in Europe without consenting to them to the intake form liabilities. It's a stupid, terrible law. They don't want to admit they got railroaded by Google. It's not a privacy law at all. It's a security law. And that's the evidence that Google lobbied to have it written that way, right? It's all about who owns the data and if they're keeping it secure enough and if they have the consent. A privacy law would limit how much data you could collect and store on an individual, right?
Right.
That's what a real privacy law would have done. You could say you could only have 100 fields. You could say you only could have 1,000 fields per individual, right? And when you collect the 1,000 first, you have to delete one.
Oh
Right?
my
That'd
gosh,
be the
so
worst
true.
thing for Google and Meta because then it would make competition be about who could do the most with 1,000 fields, which is the last thing they want. They want a data arms race, right? Where whoever collects the most personal data has the best algorithm. So
That's such a profound thought that had never occurred to me before.
yeah,
If
privacy law
the
would limit
consent
collection.
mechanism means it's not for privacy. Like, if you
Yeah,
actually cared about privacy, consent actually wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't
yeah,
matter if the user said, you can, store my genome. Like, it
yeah.
wouldn't matter. There would be no consent mechanism. There would simply be, and by the way, if you're a regulator, please, please, please don't listen to this and take this to heart. But you would basically say, no, you can't have this data. It is illegal to possess this data. Like, you cannot have it no matter what the user says. You cannot have it. It is a violation of people's
Too much.
privacy. They're consenting under duress. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's a
Limit could
wild
be
thought.
10,000 fields. If the limit was 10,000 fields, it'd be a good and effective law.
That's
And nobody needs more than 10,000 fields, but Google and Meta will argue they do, and they do keep more than 10,000 fields on all of us.
that's crazy. I didn't know that. That's a lot of fields.
You know what drives me crazy though? That people don't acknowledge that because the law was set up this way, the law privileges owners of conversions, right? That's the way Google wanted the law written. Is like we want to be privileged and say our conversion data is first party and we'll have an advantage over everyone else. But what people don't seem to realize, what no one ever says, is that now retail media networks, which is like a $50 billion industry, grew up entirely because of this law. Because someone said if you have conversion data, you can run an ad network. If you don't
Right.
have conversion data, you can't run an ad network. So everyone who owns conversion data, you should start a fucking ad network. And they all did. It's all because of this one stupid law that just privileges the collector, people who sell shit. Now you have conversion data and you have to start an ad network. And it's been so bad for our industry, right? Because now you have 1,000 companies who don't know what they're doing running terrible ad networks.
There's like comically, wasn't there a scandal? And I'm not gonna name names because that would be not nice. But I'm pretty sure a very senior person at a very large retail media network recently said, "Yeah, our tech doesn't really work. Like we don't really have any tech." And it's just the
Yeah.
case.
I saw a
Um,
chat across the bow. The sales guy from Moloko, I don't know his name. If anybody knows in the chat, wrote a like screed against Criteo about how bad Criteo's ad network is and how they're going to fail at commerce. And it's for all these reasons, right? Moloko, of course, being a company that's good with algorithms and optimization. Maybe they're moving into retail and trying to compete with Criteo. I'm not sure. But he's just scorched them with a 7 point screed.
hmm.
Moloko never had a voice in the industry before, so I was very interested in it. If you want to find it, look up Matt Newcomb. Our friend Matt retweeted it. You could also look at my comments because I wrote a comment that just said "damn" because yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
I
know.
mean, so in a word, the privacy movement is a sword used by Google, right? That's what it is, and Facebook. It's a
They'll
sword for
never
them.
admit it. All
They'll
those
never
guys
admit
have
it.
blocked me. They've all blocked. I've tried to argue this on Twitter that all those privacy guys have blocked me. The one at the Washington Post is so freaking pompous. What's his name?
Oh, I don't know the Washington Post guy. I was thrilled because Alan Chappell is he I we when I was on his podcast, I actually expected him to be a privacy guy. I expected to be like, all right, going to war. We're gonna go and say that user privacy movement is terrible. I'm gonna have someone on the other side that's gonna shout at me about how like, oh, users have choices and like we are not respecting their choices. And it was the exact opposite. Alan was 100% aligned with this view. It was awesome. I was very surprised.
Yeah, well, Cantor
And
said it. The Cantor, who was the head of antitrust division of DOJ during the Google trials, gave a speech where he said privacy is an antitrust issue. He like flat out said the thing Google didn't want to say. It's like the solution to privacy violations in advertising is competition.
oh my gosh. So this is all to say, this is Adam and I complaining about the way that we wish the world was, and the way the world is GDPR. And
Yeah,
now
some
there
people
have
in
been
Brussels
rumblings of
got
changes, right?
rolled. They got
Yeah.
rolled. It was 2017. They got maybe they'll fix it. Some people they got rolled by lobbyists. And yeah, Europeans, you should admit it.
Yeah, man. It's the whole privacy thing stuns me to this day because also we extend privacy to users in this discussion about user consent. Meanwhile, publishers, it's been, it's been just open territory where it's like, well, your website's available on the internet, therefore you own nothing. Like you have no rights to anything that you've written because I can access it. So by virtue of me being able to access it, there is no concept of publisher privacy or publisher ownership. No, if I can do it, it's allowed. And so publishers have
Yeah, that
been,
was a weird ruling. What was the
yeah,
ruling that came down? It was Anthropic.
yeah. And here's the thing. So the publishers are trying to fight back because the LLMs are what surfaced this. But the reality is the LLMs have this tremendous precedent because the internet has operated in this way since its inception, where publishers basically had no rights to what they had written. And
Well, they didn't want it, right? They wanted Google to scrape their site. So
correct.
yeah, so
The incentives were very, very perverse because it was a deal with the devil, right? It's like, oh, well, you get traffic, but we get to basically consume all of your IP. It gets to become part of us.
it started pretty
And
innocuous, right? Google would be like, we crawl your page and we're going to collect a toll on the way, but you'll get to show ads and make money. So it started off, you know, almost fair.
I think the value exchange was always wildly asymmetric. I think from the beginning, it was, and they were taking advantage of people who worked in print, right? So these are people who work in print,
That's
and
me.
print, yeah, and well, and print was a real business. In print, the way you got additional customers was you advertised for them. And if you were New York Times and you wanted additional New York Times subscribers, you had to have strategies to acquire them. So when Google came knocking on their door and was like, "Hey, just put it on a website and we're going to give you free money." Right? Like there was no like you don't need to work for it at all. All you need to do is publish it and you will get traffic because we will send it to you and that's in our interest. I'm sure that sounded wildly alluring to someone in 2002. It's like, "Wait, all I have to do is make a website and I get paid?" Like that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Um
I was in print then. I was
oh
actually
really?
there. I was there. Yes, I
Tell
was
me
there.
about
I
it.
was in
Okay,
print.
so what was the conversion like? Like the higher ups who were like, "What is the internet?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I don't have anything to add the way you said it. These were not digital business people. Like,
No. And also, if you're not a digital business person and you hear about this deal, how would your reaction be anything other than this sounds great? like, wait, you're just gonna send me traffic and I'm gonna get paid for the ads I show to them? Okay, wonderful.
what's frustrating to them is I was telling newspapers, I was like, we're making 20% of our money for classifieds. And I was like a listings editor at the time. And I was like, and like listings of events, like this is something, it's going to be really big. And like, should do this and get involved and like try to own this business. And they didn't listen, but no one
I
listens to me.
mean,
I'm sure I wasn't the only one.
I was there for classifiedads.com. That was a good one. Um, Internet classifieds and Craigslist, right? They became a huge business.
Back to
Uh,
print. The paper thing isn't great, but I liked print. I loved getting the new issue of a magazine, and I subscribed to tons of magazines and bought tons more at the newsstand. When I moved to New York City in 1993, and like going to the newsstands that had every magazine was so awesome. They had magazines from all over the world. I guess it was like the internet. But it was in some ways it was better, like it was colorful and tactile.
Well, I also think it was healthy. I think that print everything, right? Is a bundle, and you're not choosing each individual thing within the bundle. You're choosing the bundle itself, which
Yeah.
means you're inherently exposed to some things that you might not have previously been interested in, that you might disagree with. Like it's all in there, and at the very least, you see the headline, right? Even if you don't read the article of the thing you disagree with. And in the hyper personalized world, the perspectives just don't reach you. Like I know that I don't get them. I know that when I'm on social media in those places, like I have to very, very proactively curate perspectives that are different than mine. And there was something about like the print world that bundled all of those things together and helped, at the very
That's what I'm
least,
saying. Like if
bring some
those people
diversity of
got
perspective.
involved with technology, they could have made it, right? Someone in the chat just said Patreon is the new one. Like, and maybe it will be recreated, like good curation of good content, but and including technology. In theory, it could be better, but instead we've had too much democratization, right? Not enough curation, like just the loudest voice, or in Elon's exceptionally dystopian version of media, the ones who pay him get the first say.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of arguments that the payment factor is at the root of all of it, right? Where it's like if you're just trying to maximize time on site, you're not going to show people things they disagree with because the algorithms say that makes them bounce, and it's much better to just keep them there, keep them on the
It's
treadmill.
a tyranny of the majority, right? Most people just want to see a fight, but I mean, but Twitter was great. I have subscribed to my 8-year-old daughter about Twitter. She's like, Dad, why do you look at X so much? And I was like, well, I used to love Twitter, and then Elon Musk bought it and ruined it, and I still can't stop looking at it. And she's like, oh, Elon, she's heard of Elon Musk. Oh, the richest guy in the world, the Tesla guy. I was like, yeah, he bought Twitter and made it X, and now it stinks. And he's like, how did he ruin it? And I could explain it to her. I was like, it used to be that whoever said the funniest thing would get the most likes, and you'd see them on top. And now, before you could get to anything funny, you have to scroll through 50 blue checks saying something stupid. It's like a parade of idiocy before you could get to a witty comment. For some reason, I'm still looking for the witty comments.
Well, that's aside from the pornography and the hate speech, which are just sprinkled throughout my day. And there's nothing like when I'm on the subway looking at Twitter and there's just like, oh, just pornography. Poop, go. And it's like, oh my gosh, I hope no one's looking at
It's
me. And I feel
so
like
there's
I'm a
not enough talk.
terrible
It's
person.
anti-media. It's against the whole idea of media.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
All
lowest.
right.
There's a lot of that. I mean, what I was saying about ad tech last week about how once you make software, the software mentality would be that you should build it to do the thing that's done the most. And that's
Hmm.
why, they're click and ID machines. Most DSPs are just click and ID machines that can't do incrementality. It's the same idea as what's wrong with social media. It's optimization to the least common denominator. And it's a really common belief based on how hard it is to build things and architect things for global scale that you have to build to the thing that's done the most.
I mean, so really funny on that topic. I was mentioning this before the podcast, and while I like momentarily shill for myself, but in a very separate, self-deprecating way,
Our show.
something that our product is really good at is clicks. So we do really good measurement of clicks on publisher websites, and therefore we are really good at predicting which ads are high click opportunities and which are low click opportunities.
Hmm.
And this is the number one thing that I sell. This is the one that perks people's ears up and has them go, "Oh, wait, you can help me like increase my CTR? Can I have that?" And I'm like, "Is it 2002?"
Yeah.
Like, like what, like of all the things I'm telling you, this is the one that like catches your attention and like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it for you. But it's because it's so easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
Somebody clicked the ad and came to my website. Therefore, that has some kind of value to me. There is like there's a kernel of truth to that. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
As long as it wasn't a bot, there is something there. If somebody clicked it, and I've always found this really interesting for the people who really hate on clicks. Like if it's not a bot, a human being clicked the ad and went to the website, as long as it wasn't a bot or an accident, and that's a strong signal. Like that's a powerful signal. Somebody chose to click the ad and go to the website. Um,
Stu-
I've got to believe in incrementality. It's a valuable signal.
No, it's not because of a very small number of people click at all. If you optimize to that, then you miss the larger number of people who never click ads.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I would say for the small number of people who click, for those strange, wonderful, beautiful beasts, that's a great signal. It's a great like signal of intent, but it should be so rare.
I
Like
think it's a
clicks
lot of
should be
people who buy a
rare.
lot of clothes. I think it's that's my theory is that people who buy clothes and buy clothes online, then they see clothes they like and they click and check them out. But if you're selling cars that way, I really don't think people buy cars like that.
Gareth, do you believe clicks are a zero-sum game on a site, improving in one area detracts from another? So this is a really tricky question to answer, and something that I've built an entire analytic system dedicated to.
Hmm.
Because basically, the only way to answer that question is to measure it longitudinally. So you have to say, because if a click takes someone off of a website, the people who hate that are people who will never get that user back to their website. So, in a world where most of your traffic is flyby, and your goal is to maximize the amount of money you make in a single session because you do not think that user is ever going to come back, clicks are actually not a good thing for you unless you're getting paid by AdSense, and AdSense is paying you a significant amount of money, more than the ads you would have been able to show that user had they stayed on your site and extended the duration of their page view. Um, for everyone else, though, for people who are modeling LTV, for people who are trying to build engaged user bases, which publishers should be doing, and they still don't. And I like every time I like sell my LTV software and people don't go, oh yeah, like I already have this. That's why I'm not buying it from you. They still don't. They still think about maximizing session RPM, session like single session RPM. That's what publishers think about. If you are thinking about LTV, clicks can be wonderful. And the reason clicks can be wonderful is if you know, oh, this is a user who's been to my site 5 times. I think they're going to come back again. If that person clicks, it increases the estimation of your site in the eyes of advertisers. And in that position, where
Your domain gets scored higher.
it does, and I mean, you're on the buy. If a domain drives a lot of high value clicks, that's a good thing. And a lot of people do domain scoring and do page scoring. Um, So I think for those publishers, you should be maximizing viewability and clicks. Like that should be a thing that you think about. So to that point, how different are various inbound refers behavior? So in my experience, search traffic or things that are labeled organic in search have strangely high CTRs. I think that there's a lot of bot in organic traffic and a lot of bot that gets classified as search. I think it's a thing.
Wait a minute. Publishers don't show ads to bots.
Oh no. Oh, we stumbled upon it, didn't we? We have a nice
Wait a
little
minute.
landmine here.
Wait a minute.
I actually think it's unfair to expect that publishers are going to pay for infrastructure to serve fewer ads. I think that's unfair. They're not going to do it. I think that GAM, this is ridiculous. A publisher's ad server, 95% of whom are GAM, that's the thing that should just be, I'm not going to serve to a bot, right?
Yeah.
How hard would that be? Google, like if we're gonna say Google doesn't know what is a bot and what isn't a bot, like come on, it's ridiculous.
The weirdest thing
So,
about the double verified legal filing against analytics is they say over and over that when publishers serve ad to bots, double verify ensures that those impressions are removed from billable counts. And everyone, ad
it's
techers, like, what the fuck are they talking about?
and even if they do, right? Because so from the publisher perspective, at the end of the month, we get this like lovely little email that's like, oh, here are the impressions we're not paying you for, right? We're not going to tell you which ones they are, but it's 1,000,005, and you're not getting paid for these because reasons. And
You're talking
it's
about
so
from
messed
Google,
up.
right?
Oh, it happens from Google. It happens from every ad exchange. Every ad exchange will have an end of the month IVT reconciliation. And it sucks because for every single one of those impressions that a publisher didn't get paid for, there were probably other bids that would have paid. And this is one of those things where people just expect publishers to take it on the nose and be like, all right, you're just not getting paid for these. And if you complain, what you're doing is drawing attention to fraud on your website. So you're not going to complain. And yeah, man, the whole system sucks. That one sucks. The notion that they would buy something to not let the bad guys know and like then just not pay for it. it's repugnant. It's terrible because the
Yeah,
publishers
they would
have
show
no
the
way in
data.
the moment of knowing that.
If you wanted to help the publisher, you'd give them the data. Be like, here's how we know it's a bot. Here's how you can know it's a bot next time.
Oh,
And
you would give publishers tech? You would put code on the publisher's page that says, "Hey, when I fire a thing, don't serve an ad."
Isn't it mostly
Like,
pretty simple? Like the computer has no screen, stuff you could get right out of the user agent, that there's no
yeah, that
screen.
was Method Media's whole thing. Method Media was always like, "Can I detect a monitor?"
Yeah,
Like,
that's
and
pretty good.
well, here's the thing. So really sophisticated bots is really hard.
I
That's
know, but
warfare.
crawlers, but they're
But
showing ads to crawlers.
I know, it's pretty inexcusable. Like that, they're just well. To be fair, Google shouldn't be serving ads to those crawlers in the first place. Like, if does abstract question, does Google serve ads to its own crawlers? Like, if it
Yeah,
does, like that sounds illegal. Like, right? Like, it sounds wrong. Like, it's a Google crawler. Are they paying themselves? The 4 times that they get paid in the value chain. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, man, I really that one's troubling because it's and oh God, I'm really chilling today. I'm just going for Gamera. You guys are
Oh,
gonna have to deal with me. Um, so basically, in the world of verification and in the world of anti-fraud and all of that stuff, this infrastructure has all been built conspicuously in the absence of publishers. So the amount that publishers get from these tools, Open Sincera, IAS's API, is will tell you your score, right? That we've derived from data that we are not going to explain to you. And like, here's what you get. And by the way, if you have a problem with it, you can email us, but we're probably not going to do anything about it because that would cost us money. Um, and that means that all of the infrastructure that we've built doesn't work because if you're building things on metadata and bidstream data, you're building things on a house of cards because you're building things on things on top of stuff that can be manipulated. Like everything server to server. This is what blows my mind about bot detection. Like Double Verify, Human are detecting bots by analyzing packets of information that could be totally made up. Like a bid request can be absolutely fabricated, and we know that large parts of them are. Like that is a thing. Large parts of
yeah,
bid
you have to
requests
be
that
the
come in,
publisher. You have to see the
you
user
have to
agent.
be in the publisher. And
Yeah.
so that is what Gamera has a verification product that we're now selling, where we're like, hey, we're going to actually start with the publisher, and the publisher is going to implement our code on page, and we'll share data at the request of buyers and choose whether or not they share it. But if they choose to,
Yeah.
then we now have consensus where here's the actual data of what's going on in the
That sounds
publisher.
great. What are you going to charge?
There's a free version.
There's a free version.
There's a free version. The reason the free version is there is because we want to just get critical mass. Like it's a thing. Right? You
Yeah.
need to get on as many pages as possible. If you're trying to build a verification standard, it needs to be everywhere to be effective.
I'm thinking of
And then
doing the
there
same
are
thing with
yeah.
suitability.
What
It's
was
like
that?
I'm thinking of doing the same thing with suitability. Like you're saying, like if
Yeah.
these things have really low cost and there's companies charging all this money for it and now all this new competition, well, let's just rush to the place where it's free. Let's just jump to the place where it just doesn't cost a lot anymore to do brand safety, brand
Oh my
suitability,
God, suitability is
quality.
free. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours costs a lot of money because we have to store data on every user, but we're probably going to curate with it. So what we'll do is we will share the verification data with buy-side platforms and say, hey, this is a verified impression. Oh, this is a good one. We're also going to be signing impressions. So as something flows up in the bid stream, we'll say this is a real thing from the publisher. Which, by the way, another thing, crazy that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Why are there not bid request signatures? Why is that not a thing? So that's why we built it.
totally. We could bring this to the ANA. You know what they're gonna say?
What are we gonna say?
Who the fuck are you, you little bastards?
I don't know, man. I had the CEO of Fiducia reach out to me. I don't know what that
Yeah,
company is.
of who?
Fiducia?
Oh yeah, he's in with the
Yeah.
ANA. That guy.
Yeah, that's why he reached out to me. But yeah, we can fix this. We've just all the anti-fraud solutions we've been building, everything we've been building we've been building it ass backwards. We've been building it at the end of the snake that has no idea what is actually the origination point of a given impression. And this is also a huge problem in CTV. Huge problem in CTV. CTV needs a third party neutral person signing impressions. like
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is a real one. And
All
you
it
know,
takes is
they,
a critical mass of people who want to solve this problem, right? Just like if the people who want to solve the problem can overrule the people who want to make money from not solving the problem and have it solved, right? Like not just fraud impressions, but suitability, like essentially all the legacy businesses of Double Verify and IAS could be free services governed out of the IAB and the ANA and the WFA.
I mean, you could almost say for publishers right now, there's taxation without representation. Um,
Advertisers too. It's too bad England didn't show up. Getting redcoats.
But yeah, going back, 10
We got
minutes
an
to
Irish
Rob's
guy.
question. Traffic sources, what converts well? Email traffic is monstrous. Email traffic performs unfathomably against just about every metric. To the point where there's a whole ecosystem of publishers now that are this is a fun business model for everyone to learn about. Um, so if you're familiar with live intent, and live intent does probabilistic matching of IP addresses to emails. So you throw their code on the page, they go, hey, we think the email address for this user who just hit your page is this. So the new form of MFA, except it's not real, it is literally MFA. The sites are made for advertising, but all sites are. This one doesn't run programmatic because programmatic doesn't pay high enough. What they do is they drive traffic, normally from Facebook or from Google search. They use live intent to probabilistically match an email address. And then they auto subscribe people. They auto opt in. So they're professional inboxers. And this is
What?
actually a really hard thing to do, to be really good at not getting caught by spam filters and not pissing people off. But by virtue of this, they can now email people to bring them back to the website. And historically, AdSense CPMs for these email users, right, that are sourced from Facebook or sourced from wherever, are $40 to $60 on banners.
One
So
click.
these users click stuff and buy stuff. That's what this means. They click and they buy.
That's 10,000 times what they get for an impression.
It's an unfathomable amount of money that the CPM that AdSense pays for these. So email traffic crushes it. Every publisher should have a really well developed email strategy, and if they don't, there's no helping you at this point. And then social traffic, it's solid. The bot rates that we saw in social traffic were always really low. It was always superior to all the other traffic sources we saw in terms of like bot percentages. Like I think that in general, Facebook users are humans. I think that's pretty safe to assume. Like Facebook is pretty good about when you're
Well,
showing
there's
an
something
ad.
to
It's
it.
probably
If
going
people
to a
are
person.
talking, if social media was just higher quality, then it would be a much stronger argument. That people were talking about your content and linking to it, but that's not what social media is anymore.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's like
Um,
90% of social media.
oh,
But I want to mention a new publication that John Ebert, the founder of Ad Exchanger, who has exited Ad Exchanger, has a new publication about AI. It's called Tip Sheet AI. He covered us. I put the link in our Slack, Gareth, but you might not have seen
ooh,
it. He
yeah,
covered stuff
I
from
saw
our
it. I
show.
had a
He's covering a
couple.
lot of good stuff. Developments in AI. So it's Tip Sheet AI. It looks like it's going to be the Ad Exchanger for AI and ad tech. So I'm excited about that. Thanks, John, for the mention, and good luck with the new venture.
That's so cool. Um, what? All right, I have a. There's something worth discussing because it's kind of sad. If you're tuned into the AdOps community,
Mm.
unemployment is rising in the AdOps community. It's a
Like,
thing,
like,
which is
why?
sad and
Why?
hard to see. I'm not sure. I think that there are probably a few reasons, right? Like a lot of publishers are tightening their belts because traffic is in decline. So publishers are trying to not spend money. But I wonder if this is already like a smoldering ember. Are companies like Swivel just really gonna just do murder to an entire like class of employment
You tell me, does that shit
thing?
work? Does that shit work for AdOps? Like AdOps is like it's hard. Like it's JavaScript coding and stuff. I don't know. Are the bots on that yet?
That's Swivel's business, and they're pretty smart. From an AdOps perspective, so I know the Swivel guys really well. In the
Tell us
grand,
about Swivel. Start at the beginning.
oh yeah, so Swivel used to be Pilot Desk. It's Joe Hirsch and Matt Dearborn and a few other people like Franz Vermeulen, and they hired Gear. But I know Joe and Matt from like literally my first job. So at UpNexus, Matt and I were the entire new business team in 2011, working for Lauren Nemeth. And Joe has been running ad networks, the CEO, has been running ad networks since he was 15 years old. So he's been doing ad ops in Right Media. He's been doing ad ops in all of these platforms since he was but a wee lad. And at the time at AppNexus, they were running a network called Yellowhammer Media Group. And basically, in the grand scheme of people who know how to make systems work, and I don't mean like, their fancy work at like a large company have processes for processing direct sales, like, oh, we got an IO win, like this, gonna say that. Nah, that's not the ad ops I'm talking about. The ad ops I'm talking about are how do I configure this in this tool to get it to behave optimally? Like, what happens if I duplicate this thing 10,000 times? Like, what happens, like, every nook and cranny of ad ops to manipulate how these systems work has these are the sorts of people who I trust to know how these tools actually work. So they built Pilot Desk because they were the founders of SpringServe, right? So they ran the CTV ad server that has become pretty market dominant, and they built it out of their video arbitrage ad server. Um, but basically that tool, I think, gave them really good insights into, and they had huge clients, right? Like LG and people like that. Really powerful insights into, hey, in the world of being a CTV publisher, this is Joe, you're going to have to buy me dinner for this. I hope this gets back to you.
How far along are they on the automation of the
I
ad?
think they're really far. So they saw LG when they were using SpringServe. Here are the activities that they engage in every day. Here's the stuff that they have to do to make this work, to make that work. And they were like, well, that could be automated. And a lot of this started prior to AI because a lot of media buyers, really good media buyers on Facebook, have entirely automated meta systems that sit on top of Facebook. Automatic duplication, automatic budget manipulation, automatic like
Yeah, we have
creative
that.
A/B testing.
Yeah, Chalice has built some of that.
Yeah, that's a thing. And my understanding is Swivel is pretty far along. Like they're automating hundreds of thousands of tasks a day, where their system is just saying, okay, this budget needs to go up or down. This creative needs to be activated. This one needs to be turned off. This needs to be set up here. And then future looking automations, right? Like, oh, I want to juice my budget for the 4th of July. No one's going to be in the office monitoring. Turn this
It's
thing
pretty
off. I
confusing
think
though,
they're there.
because what you're talking about, and like I say, Chalice has built some of this. This is code. This is decision tree code. This is not an AI thing. Like if you're talking about automating processes that are done over and over, it's not an AI thing. So maybe they market that way, or that it's going to be prompt initiated on top of it, but that's not an AI thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's a prompting component, and I would let Joe like defend what makes it AI. But at the end of the day, a lot of AI companies are not AI. It's just not a thing.
I want to talk about what I'm seeing now at the DSP AI market, right? You can think of like the buy side as like a 7-step process, and Chalice is really focused on steps 6 and 7, like when things go to market, the actual transactions and the optimization of transactions,
Mhm.
and the a little bit of the deployment of the effects back to step 1, right? Up the first planning step. We try to close the loop and send data back to make a circle. Um, but something that I just feel myself like splitting from almost everyone else in buy-side ad tech, especially other founders, is around data. Like there's still a belief there's people are not letting go of the belief that a buy-side tech entity, that any buy-side tech software should be a data fortress, right? That it should consume as much data as it can, let as little data out as possible, and then use that data to train AI for everyone.
Mm.
I cannot seem to convince anyone else, almost anyone else in ad tech, that this is a bad and doomed idea for the enterprise market, right? For the small advertiser market, sure, they have so little data to give that it's a pretty good deal for them to give their little bit of data and get some powerful AI out. But if you're enterprise, and that includes publishers, big advertisers, and data companies, it is a terrible deal to give your data to a data fortress to train some AI that then they're going to charge you back to use. I just think this can't last, right? So what we see is the reason and the reason it can't last is it creates a feudal system, right? Where there's like all these towers of AI power. And if you're big, like you have to work across them. You have to work with all these different feudal lords. And like you lose the power of AI because it's siloed in all these different feudal systems, right? Like you're essentially another serf, right? You don't want to be a serf, right? So what I when I pitch these guys, I tell them, yes, there's a new independence, right? We're declaring independence from these platforms. Your data, like instead of going to you and saying, give me your data and I'll give you AI, I'm saying license my technology and keep your data, right? And use AI built from your own data to play these platforms against each other, right? All the data that they have is not going to be the best for you. Your data is going to be the best for you. And you should increasingly, put pressure on them to let you deploy your own models in their platforms. I think I see an inevitability around this, right? Because
Well,
you're a big advertiser looking out at these towers of power. It's just like, I need to be independent from them.
I love that you keep saying Tower of Power because Tower of Power is wonderful. Um, I want to devil's advocate though.
Okay.
If I am a CMO and someone's like, okay, well, we're going to A/B test Adam's thesis against one of the towers of power. Will the keep your data controlled thesis and not like pool win an A/B test?
Yeah, but I mean, it depends. Like, it immediately goes into an it depends. Like, we're certainly better for predicting incremental conversions or new customer sales, the things the brands should care about. We could have better models for those. And they could have a lot of quibbles of like, how much, like we really, Meta's an important partner to us, Amazon's an important partner to us, and how much can you deploy our own model in these walled gardens? And right, it becomes a messy conversation. But big picture, like the CMO is not going to go all in with Meta. Like that's Meta's proposition is go all in with us.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
worry about optimizing Amazon. Don't worry about optimizing Google. And the CMO can't do that. He can't say, I'm going to give all of my data to 4 different companies to train 4 different platforms and then hope I find the right mix. It's crazy. Like that, I think they're very dissatisfied with that. And it's not, and like when you set up a false question, it's not if one of them are better, it's if working across a fragmented AI landscape is better, and there's no way it is.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder, there is a theory that more data is better, and your data is almost certainly true. It is probably the best for you. But if these guys are going to take that and then they're going to enrich it with all of their data, which they would, right? They would simultaneously steal it and theoretically drive better results. And let's hold models equal. Let's like hold optimization equal.
It's
Um,
not though. What do you it has to come to that. What are you predicting? And when you talk about these conglomerations of data, this huge scaled software with a huge data pool, they only could predict a few things.
yeah.
They will rinse
Oh,
you.
Rob's here. Rob's agreeing with you. All right. We have good British representation today. I've seen a lot of buddies in there. Um, yeah, I mean it's an interesting future. It's an interesting discussion because I think especially for SMBs, like you said, the easy button's meaningful. The fact that Facebook is out there in market saying, "Hey, all you have to do is tell us what your goals are." Like you don't even have to log in to set up a campaign. Just type what your goals are, and we'll take it from there. It's going to be appealing for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. If it's your only platform, great. But if you have to do that 4 different times and give your data 4 different times, it's just, it's like it's like being colonized by 4 different countries. Like nobody's gonna stand for that.
It's not for long.
I don't
So I have a
understand Rob's
question.
comment.
Yeah.
It might work on the first time, but once you've educated the Tower of Power, they will rinse you on the renewal.
I think he's responding to me. He's saying that, oh yeah, maybe the initial test works better, but then as you keep going, the ROI is going to decrease because you've shared your data with them.
Oh yeah. Of course,
Uh,
that's we show that all the time. Like models get better and better as you get more and more data. And Google and Meta are amazing at taking that taking more margin as the model gets better. So your CPA stays about the same, right? Every advertiser has noticed this. Like your results don't improve as you give them more data. They take more money and give you the same result.
Yeah,
It's
that's
because
so
they're taking the
interesting.
spread.
Yeah, that's 100%. And when you're on the buy and the sell side, this is the incentive. Um, and this is why people hated ad networks. And that's why pre-bid is so wonderful. The only time that ad networks work is when there's an open source auction that levels things out and makes sure the competition stays there.
That's right. And that's how you should think of AI. AI is the margin leveler. If you have it, you can claim margin. If you don't have it, people will claim margin out of your money.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So I have a
So,
question.
okay.
Have you ever done an integration with Rockerbox? Like,
Yeah,
I
I
see
met that.
so many attribution companies out there. Like, are people using these? Because they all talk about incrementality all the time. I feel like this is like a solved problem, and but it still seems to be such a problem. Like, I'm very confused. There's a disjunction there for me.
You must know Rockerbox guy. He's at
I
that.
do. I know Ron really well. He's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. But I don't know much about the product or their customers. But what I do know is that it's very easy to improve on Google Last Touch. Like it's such a bad signal for big advertisers that it's not even directionally right. Like, if you follow that signal, you'll go out of business. And companies have done that, right? So, to improve to a directional signal by using some techniques of MMM and some techniques of multi-touch attribution, yeah, you can make a business out of it. My experience is that enterprise aren't big users of third-party MTA and MMM. Definitely MMM, but not big users of third-party MTA. But that it's mostly, the our favorites, the direct to ad. What are they called again?
Yeah, Kev.
The Warby Parkers. Yeah, DDC.
Yeah, D2Cs. They use Rockerbox. Yeah, I mean it's a good market to go after. Yeah, I mean is the mythical creature for me in this has always been Adobe, where when I think of like what do big enterprise advertisers do, I think of it's a magical multi-million dollar annual contract with Adobe, and I don't even know what it does.
For what? Like Omniture?
For
I'm like
attribution
advertisers
for
who
yeah
advertise off Omniture attribution are the bane of all of our existence, right? They only
really.
only
Wait, what
can,
is Omniture a multi-touch attribution system? Is it an
no,
MMM system?
no,
What is
it's literally
Omniture?
it's click. It just clicks. It goes off the
What?
refer. It was referred by the ad. That's how the ad gets credit.
Seriously? That's
Yeah.
all that Omniture is?
Yeah. That's all they measure. There's
Oh my
some
gosh.
integration with their DSP or DMP where you can get like some view credit, but it's very mysterious. They don't even last I looked, it was a few years ago, but last I looked, they didn't even have a consistent identifier for a user. They only had session ID, so they had no way of possibly connect an ad view with a session.
What? Isn't this wildly expensive software? Like,
People swear by it, especially in auto. We do a lot of work in auto, and they have a really good hold in there. We're getting auto advertisers obsessed with their the on-site traffic and the how many people are on site and how many people look at the car and how many people look at the dealer visit and where did they come from. And they always underrate display because Omniture tells them, not many of these people came from display advertising, meaning clicked.
that's crazy.
Yeah, so you can see how Rockerbox is going to improve on that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sure they love. Well, but here's the thing. So Omniture, is it hooking into the other channels as well? And for the like, does it hook into TV? Is that a thing? Like,
No, it's
what's
refer traffic, refer
it's just
sites.
referrer traffic?
Yeah, they're like organic. They're like organic's doing well. That must be TV.
That's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. We they could have bought Atlas. Like Adobe looked
Yeah,
at Atlas when Facebook bought it after Microsoft got rid of it. Like they could have had an ad server and competed with Google and buy-side ad server. They
yeah.
decided to stay with a refer site attribution.
I mean,
It's
I am
mysterious
sure that
company.
Atlas was like, I'm sure any modern engineer looking at Atlas would be like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this is an ancient tool. Like who made this?
Ah,
It's like,
I shared an office with one of the guys who built Atlas.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I worked for years and years at Razorfish, and he was an original Avenue A engineer.
yeah, Avenue A. My gosh, wow.
He had and he went to a meeting while I shared an office with him with Facebook engineers after they bought Atlas, and they asked to speak to the engineers who built it, and he's like most of the guys I just talked to weren't even born when we started building it. Like there
It's amazing, man. It's a wild world out there, and buy side attribution when it shouldn't be. This should be something like we should have new technologies for this. Like it confuses me that this is something so important that seems to be like invested in, but just this massive legacy stranglehold on. It's very weird to me.
Yeah, well, the marketers, when we work with companies, most of what they do is concerned with, the actual product and brand. They build the actual product, they distribute their product. That takes 80-90% of the company's people and energy is creating their product and getting it out for sale. The marketing of the product is a much smaller consideration. It makes sense that it's outsourced to experts. And the adjustment to doing that digitally has been really slow, and requires more generational change before we'll see adoption of the latest tools, and just frankly more pressure. Like there isn't a lot of pressure on the decisions that those 10% of people in enterprise marketing are making, until times are bad or people get called out or or people start running away competitively, right? There's sort of some tacit agreements, like the holding companies, like not really compete with each other. Like none of the holding companies wildly have run away with each other from each other and tried to run up the score until very recently that Publicis is doing this. And there's kind of a lot of this, like as a competition advocate or activist, like it became very sensitive to when things are just not that competitive. And if you look at like the Fortune 500 brands, there isn't that much competitiveness around advertising. Like there's sort of like agreement not to run up the score on each other and keep doing the same stuff.
It's so
Tacit agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I'm sure there's a component of digital kind of got to cheat at first, which is digital is going to show you a magic ROAS number on a screen. And what it's being compared to is an MMM from 1980. And that MMM is like, well, we think that this was responsible for this much like in incremental revenue for us. And even though the MMM might be more accurate, the ROAS number is really easy to understand.
It's exhausting. The way digital came into the enterprise, we've talked about before, was a lot of hype, a lot of lying, a lot of people got burned, and it reinforced something that's true. Is like if for 80% of your business you make chocolate bars, and 20% of your business is some sort of marketing, and in that marketing market is very risky and full of liars, then innovating is extremely risky. Trying to innovate in this market is extremely risky, and you could be punished for trying and failing. So, over the years, it's in a lot of cases made sense not to try too hard to innovate because it's riskier than sticking to the status quo. It takes me a really long time to like understand and accept this stuff because I've always been like, let's innovate, let's use the latest tools, and my attitude toward risk doesn't match the attitude toward risk of Fortune 500 marketers. But the CEO of a bigger and bigger company, I think we're getting closer.
Oh, I'm gonna keep selling clicks until the cows come home. I'm not gonna change people's minds. If you want clicks, I'll give you clicks until you're blue in the face. Let's do clicks. Fine, great.
If clicks could be kind of good if clicks were like honest about what you're gonna get when you click. But half the time, it's a hot model and you click to a list.
I mean, I think there's a lot of variability there, but at the end of the day, the rule book kind of says a really powerful call to action is a thing. And most performance marketers do know this, right? There are two breeds of performance marketers. There's someone who's like, listen, I have something that's so compelling that all I have to do is get someone to the landing page. And I will do that by any means necessary. It will be a bikini. It will be stomped. We successfully got rid of Stomp the Cockroach. Did you ever see Stomp the Cockroach ads? Yeah. So Stomp the Cockroach is this exact thesis, right? Where you have something on the other side of Stomp the Cockroach that's so compelling that if you just get them to try and stomp the cockroach, you're going to get them to it. But then there are people who see conversion rates that are really bad when they do something like that. So it's let them try it, let them compete. I also
What would a good click environment look like?
Oh, I think that a lot of finance, like a lot of financial products, are really good for this. Like Fisher Investments, right? Fisher Investments is a big post-click advertiser, and I don't think they're. I mean, don't get me wrong. Anyone who's managing people's money is like slightly misleading because they have to be. But I think that that's a really good example of a super clean post-click advertiser. They drive a bajillion leads, like a bajillion leads with very clean post-click ads.
What does the ad say?
Like Fisher Investments, like, are you planning for your retirement? Like, how are you managing your money? Like things like that. Really like kind of dull, like boring looking ads.
Like we have today, we should be able to predict what people are curious about or what they might be curious about. Like it could be a lot better.
Huge. I totally agree. But that's why a lot of these finance guys are such big AdWords buyers, big search buyers. Because when someone's out there going looking for like financial advice, they're like, boom, I want to make sure I'm there. And I look safe and I look established. And there's the post-click world's big. It's a big place. Yeah, it's out there, man. Yeah, guys, we've been going for an hour.
Oh, great view.
We just
from
went
up
today.
here.
Yeah, it's lovely. It looks like freedom out here, at least for the time being.
Well, let's say goodbye to the United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland, and the European Union and Norway. Thank you
for joining, guys. Thank you for coming. I'll hopefully talk to all of you in the next few weeks. Reach out to us. You guys ask questions, do whatever you like. We'll be back next week.
Take us out, Maldo.
Yo, the crowd is back, the lights are dim. Front row's buzzing, it's about to begin. AdTech Ad Talk, they're taking the stage. Adam and Gareth on a knowledge rampage. AdTech Ad Talk, it's a live Q&A. Buy side, sell side, clearing the way.